Released on Steam exactly 1 year ago today, Ready or Not is a tactical first-person shooter by Void Interactive that aims to depict the modern world where SWAT teams are tasked with confronting and defusing hostile forces through intense and shockingly realistic scenarios, involving everything from stopping petty robbery attempts to breaking up trafficking rings. And now, on its anniversary, this video aims to provide a bird's eye view on the game and how it compares to its initial release, how it's evolved, and what to expect from it in the future. So sit back, grab a refreshment from the HQ vending machine, slowly walk the training course a few dozen times, and join us as we take a look at Ready or Not 365 days later. Now, Ready or Not actually released into early access way back in 2021, providing players a solid, albeit bare bones, tactical shooter that with a bit of time in the oven would hopefully rival Rainbow Six Siege, which was dominating the subgenre at the time. And one thing that really set Ready or Not apart was its emphasis on player freedom and decision making. While there are rules of engagement, each scenario can change on a dime, and you need to be able to make split-second decisions and live with the fallout of those decisions. Being too trigger-happy means the hostages may end up in danger, but taking too long to react can spell out certain death for you or your squad mates. Immersion was also at the forefront of the experience. This isn't the kind of game where you can just tank a few bullets and pop behind cover for a minute to regen your health. In Ready or Not, you can be killed in only a few shots, and even if you do manage to escape, you'll have to carry out the rest of the encounter injured. The game's brutal realism can be equal parts disturbing and captivating, definitely not shying away from the violence of armed combat in the way that many other first-person shooters tend to. In fact, they deliberately shine a light on it, with several missions taking place directly after or even during mass shootings, and touching on other hot-button topics. But its difficulty and brutality makes it not only intense moment to moment, as you slowly creep through areas never sure if each step is going to be your last, but also satisfying when you finally clear each level of hostiles and can return back to base to finally breathe again. And this was a gameplay loop that, while not for everyone, many fans of the tactical shooter genre latched onto, with an average of about 5,000 daily active users while still in early access. But in the time leading up to release, the game would be hit with a wave of controversies, including being briefly delisted from Steam due to an alleged copyright dispute, and their original publisher, Team 17, pulling out of the project just a few days before early access began. Despite these controversies, however, Ready or Not released to mostly positive reviews on Steam, and an 80% average critic score, with many praising the game's challenging gameplay, and some even comparing it to a horror game that knows how to get the adrenaline pumping. However, many critics found the subject material to be a bit off-putting, and felt the game made light of these serious subjects, criticizing the tonal whiplash between the heavy and dark drama to its occasional crude humor. In terms of content, Ready or Not launched with 18 levels, spanning from gas stations to nightclubs to hotels and car dealerships. Players enjoyed an arsenal of assault rifles, SMGs, shotguns, pistols, and plenty of specialized gear, like riot shields, tasers, and battering rams. And in fact, unlike many other FPS games, where each piece of the sandbox would be gradually unlocked as you played, Void simply gave everything to the player at the start, to help better strategize before each mission. However, this meant that there wasn't any meaningful long-term progression to the game beyond simple cosmetic items earned by achieving certain ranks on each level. But now let's jump ahead to today, and see how things have changed. For one, Void has been hard at work stomping bugs and adding various quality of life improvements, including upgrades to audio, adding dynamic dialogue, and all new mocapped animation. AI systems also underwent a ton of refinement, making them even more challenging, improving their pathing and target acquisition to detect the player more naturally, and adding more variation to encounters by reworking hesitation parameters and their animations, making whether or not a suspect will surrender or open fire far less predictable, and further increasing tension in the gameplay. On top of that, they've also spent some time upgrading the game's engine from Unreal Engine 4 to the newest release, Unreal Engine 5, coming with a huge step up in graphic fidelity and adding to the already stellar immersion factor. In February, Void released a roadmap for the year ahead, detailing 2 paid DLCs and a big 1.2 update coming in at the end of the year. And while development has taken a bit more time than expected, Ready or Not did see that first DLC release back in July. Titled the Home Invasion DLC, it featured 3 new maps, each taking place after Los Sueños is hit with a Category 5 hurricane. And while these maps cost about $10, thankfully only the host of a multiplayer game has to actually purchase it for the entire squad to be able to play with them. In addition to the new paid content, the DLC also saw new weapons and gameplay updates added to the base game, free for everyone. This included additional AI improvements, character customization options, reworks to existing maps, and 3 new weapons: the DM4 PDW, Flux Raider, and 509 pistol. And with these new additions, player reception has been just as, if not more, positive than at launch, with nearly 90% positive ratings on Steam in the last 30 days, and fans still praising the game for its challenge and satisfying gameplay, as well as how much freedom it gives the player to tackle missions on their own. However, player numbers have been steadily decreasing in the months since release, all the way back down to about that 5,000 daily players number, signaling that while those playing the game are loving it, Ready or Not isn't necessarily attracting too many new users. On top of that, some players are still experiencing crashing issues, and some are even beginning to grow tired of how slowly the developers are at addressing these issues, and frustrated with the constant delays for new maps. And speaking of new maps, Void actually just released that second DLC this week. Titled the Dark Waters DLC, it features 3 new missions for your unit to run through. 3-Litter Triad takes you to an abandoned island resort, Mirage at Sea drops you onto a heavily guarded yacht floating in the middle of the ocean, and finally Leviathan has your team infill on an oil rig overrun with terrorists. And while it's still early, initial reaction to the DLC has been mostly positive, with many particularly loving the style of the oil rig level, although some in the community worry that the game may be reaching a bit outside of its grounded scope, as police units generally wouldn't operate in the middle of the sea, and that this may be a sign that the game is becoming a bit more global, compared to the rest of the missions being more localized to just the fictional city of Los Sueños. In addition, the new DLC also adds 5 new weapons free for everyone, along with 2 new grip attachments and 2 new optics to help round out your loadouts. Also free for everyone is, of course, even more AI improvements and updates to general weapon handling, including things like tightening up shake and recoil, among a ton of other bug fixes. And as for after that second DLC, Void Interactive hasn't yet talked about what's next for the game. But given the developer's track record, we can probably expect more gameplay improvements and hopefully that big 1.2 update sometime soon, along with maybe a new roadmap in the new year if we're lucky. And one last thing we need to talk about in terms of Ready or Not's evolution is its growing modding community, which has just exploded in the past year, offering everything from graphical overhauls to small quality of life improvements to new weapons and even entire user-created levels. And the best part is that this has been fully embraced by Void Interactive, who have held 2 mapping contests so far with actual cash prizes. In addition, they've shown a clear commitment to the community, often spotlighting creative projects on their Steam page for all to check out, meaning that if Void slows down or even ends up dropping support for the title in the future, players can at least rest assured that the community itself has all the tools that they need to continue creating content and making improvements for the game that they love. And there we have it. Ready or Not is officially 1 year old and still delivering the same highly intense and overwhelmingly realistic tactical experience. And with even more new missions just having dropped, plus the community taking point and providing players with a virtually endless amount of new content, it's just getting started. For more deep dives like these, make sure to check out GameRant.com, and thank you so much for watching.